Okay, 8th graders, today we're talking about factoring polynomials using the greatest common factor. And your essential question is, can you use common factors to write a polynomial in factored form? So there are two steps to factoring polynomials using the greatest common factor. The first step is to find the greatest common factor. And then the second step is to divide out the greatest common factor. So let's take a look at what that means on a couple of problems, because I think it'll be easier for you to see than it is for us to talk about. Okay, so we have 2x squared plus 18. The biggest number that I can take out is of 2 and 18 is 2. And there are only x's here, so I can't take out any variables. If 18 had an x, I could take out an x, but it doesn't. So now, when I'm factoring this out, it's just taking each piece and dividing it by 2, because that's what I'm taking out. I'm taking a 2 out. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, which is cancels out, x squared. And then plus 18 divided by 2 is 9. So my whole answer, factored out the GCF, is 2 times x squared plus 9 in parentheses. The next one, I can take out, of 15 and 10, I can take out 5. And y cubed and y squared, the biggest y I can take out is y squared. So I take out the biggest number of exponents that I can. So now I have 15y cubed divided by 5y squared, and 10y squared divided by 5y squared. 3 minus 2 is 1, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1 again. Remember your exponent rules. And then plus y squared and y squared cancel out. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So my answer is 5y squared times 3y plus 2. I can pull out of 5 and 30 a 5, and I can't pull out any variables because 30 doesn't have any. So 5 divided by 5 is cancels out, and I'm left with z squared. 30 divided by 5 is 6. And the last one, 3 and 14 I can't pull anything out of, but I have x squared and x to the first, so I can take out an x. So my numbers stay the same because I'm not dividing out any numbers. And x squared divided by x, 2 minus 1 is 1. And then 14x divided by x, the x's cancel out and I'm left with just 14. So it's kind of like backwards of distributive property. Okay, you may need to collect all of the terms on one side in order to factor them. So we can't just willy-nilly take out the equal sign and move it around wherever we'd like. To get negative 6g over to the other side, where we can, having camera focus problems today. To get negative 6g over to the other side where we can factor it out, I just do the opposite of it. So I add 6g to both sides. So now I'm left with 4g squared plus 6g equals 0. And now I can ask myself, what can I pull out of 4 and 6, which is 2. And what can I pull out of g squared and g? 1g. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. G squared divided by G is 1G left over. 6 divided by 2 is 3. G divided by G cancels out. And that equals 0. And now that we have that, we can solve the actual equation because it equals 0. So 2G equals 0 and 2G plus 3 equals 0. So I can divide by 2 and get G equals 0. And then I could subtract 3, get 2G equals negative 3 divided by 2. G equals 0, and G equals negative 3/2. Let's try another one like that. This one's already set equal to 0, so I don't have to move it, but I can factor out of 3 and 21, 3, x squared and x. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, x squared divided by x is x. And then 21 divided by 3 is 7. X divided by x cancels out. And that all equals 0. So 3x equals 0 and x plus 7 equals 0. So I divide by 3, x equals 0, and subtract 7, x equals 0 and negative 7. The next one, we need to get this set equal to 0, so minus 5z. So I have 5z squared minus 5z equals 0. I can pull out a 5z. 5 divided by 5 is 1, z squared divided by z is z. Minus 5z divided by 5z is 1, the whole thing cancels out. And so now 5z equals 0, and z minus 1 equals 0. So when I divide by 5, z still equals 0, and I add 1, so z equals positive 1. And on my last one, I'm going to subtract 6y squared to move it to the other side. So what I have here is negative 6y squared plus 18y equals 0. I can take out 6y. So I end up with negative 1y plus 3 equals 0. And 6y equals 0, and negative 1y plus 3 equals 0. So if I divide by 6, I get y equals 0 still. And here I would subtract 3, negative 1y equals negative 3, divide by negative 1, so y equals 3, or 0. Okay, let's take a look at the word problem. A female athlete tests her vertical jump by jumping straight into the air. Her height y in feet after t seconds can be modeled by y equals negative 16t squared plus 12t. How many seconds is she in the air? So, however many seconds she's in the air is when she is back on the ground. So she goes, when she jumps, she goes from ground, jump, back to the ground, and this is your time. So for this amount of time, she's off the ground, she's in the air, right? So if I fill in 0 for y, because that's when she's on the ground, negative 16t squared plus 12t equals 0. And so I can factor 16 and 12. I would factor out 4t, and you get negative 4t plus 3 left over. So 4t equals 0, and negative 4t plus 3 equals 0. So t equals 0, that's before she even jumps at all. We already knew that one. This is going to be our answer. So we subtract 3. Negative 4t equals negative 3 divided by negative 4. T equals 3/4. So 0.75 seconds. She's in the air. Not very long. Okay, turn your paper over. I have some problems for you to do. So on the first two, you just have to factor. On 3 through 8, you actually have to make it say equal to 0, then factor it, then solve the equations. And on number 9, there's a word problem that you should be able to do. Alright, make sure your homework's done for tomorrow. Have a great night.